New hair color, I know. I think for me, I like the pink in theory. I did not like the pink in practice. I liked what the pink represented for me. And so for me, the pink hair was really about like autonomy. It was, being with someone who every time I did something to my hair, he always had some smart comment. And I'm like, and then also, like having jobs where it's like you gotta have a natural hair color, you gotta do this. And for me, like pink represented autonomy against all of those things, against other people's ideas of, the way that my body should be and the way that my body should look and things like that. And so that's what I liked about it. I was like, I like that for me it represented like fuck y'all. But I didn't like the way that it looked on me personally. I do like this color a lot better. I am going to be honest, I am planning on getting a darker version of this because when I applied it to my hair, it was super dark and I was like, I like this. It looks really, and then when I washed it, it became really bright and I was like, oh. So I liked the way it looked when I had applied it. It was so dark and like really rich and I was like, I really like this. Oh my god. So I'm planning on darkening it up, just kind of like shifting towards darker shades of the same color because I liked it. And we'll see. And we'll see. As for me, this is another Yap session, so I'm just gonna go all over the place. I think in the title I'll put all of the things I'm gonna talk about, but like I just finished Kendi Ryan's Can't Get Enough. I'm gonna be honest, that was not my favorite Kendi Ryan book. I think for me, I really struggle with Kendi Ryan because I'm not her target demographic, and that's fine. I think a lot of people really laud her and celebrate her, and she should be. Like, I'm not being like she's not good, but I think at the same time, it's okay if everybody isn't for you, right? I read Before I Let Go and I read This Could Be Us, and I felt like that they were very grown woman romances. Like they were dealing with grown woman shit. And so that's why I'm like, I don't know, this little grown for me. We're dealing with a woman who lost her child and ended up divorcing her husband because she didn't feel like he supported her enough in that grief, and she's having to navigate her business, and then also her teenage daughter hates her. I'm like, this some grown people problems. And then in book 2, this woman whose husband is in jail and now she's broke because her husband made all the money and all the assets are tied up with that. And so now she's like, how am I going to take care of my 3 kids? I could lose my house. Like I have to start a business from scratch in order to finance, and like, because I don't have job experience. Like these are grown women problems. They're grown women problems. And so I'm just like, whew. Every time I read it, I think compared to those 2 stories, I think Hendrik's story is very mild, like dealing with a parent who has dementia. But I also felt like it did not have like, I don't want to say it didn't have the depth, but it just didn't go there in the ways I think the other 2 stories went there, because like people were dying. People were dying. People were in jail. Like Soledad got cheated on, got an STD, her husband went to jail and then had another baby. Like it was a lot. It was a lot that Soledad went through. But I think Hendrix in comparison, like, yeah, it is very emotional for her, but I don't think it was as heavy as the previous books were, which was actually better for me because I was very nervous going into this book because I was like, I don't know if I can deal with another heavy book. I just couldn't do it again. So I was glad that it wasn't as heavy as the other 2 books, but at the same time, I think for me it ran a little bit long. And we can talk, let's rant about that. It ran a little bit long, and I feel like so many contemporary books today are way, way, way too big. I saw Philip B. Williams when he got on the internet and he was like, take my book off your TBR. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was funny because I've seen Hours before and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. But it wasn't even on my TBR, TBH. But I was like, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll check it out one day. And he was like, take it off my TBR. It's been a year. I've been patient. You haven't read my book. And so I was like, oh, let me go look and see what his book is. It's 600 pages. It's not only 600 pages, it's almost 200,000 words. And he was like, that's not that long. Baby, you need to be patient. Like, you need to be patient. I really hate how people say things like, people's attention spans are so short nowadays. Meanwhile, you go and read a classic novel, that baby under 200 pages. Right? Toni Morrison's longest book was 120,000 words. That's it. That's it. That's a contemporary romance novel nowadays. Is these books are way too long, and then they have the nerve to be like, your attention span is just short. Baby, the books weren't that long back in the day. I know, because I'm still reading classics. They go through like that, boom, boom, boom. They're not long. They're not using complicated language. They're not that difficult. I mean, I got on Twitter one time and I was like, have you noticed that a lot of classics are novellas? And this woman subtweeted me, calling me a dumb fucking idiot, and that I have never read a classic in my life, because there were two authors who did not write novellas, so therefore I didn't know what I was talking about. Meanwhile, in that thread, I had like linked this article that was like, here are 50 classics that are novellas that you can read in an afternoon. And I was like, you have two examples of classics that are not novellas. I have 50. And you call me a dumb fucking idiot who doesn't know how to read. Okay. Okay. But that's what I feel like. I feel like a lot of people are being unrealistic right now when they're like, oh, well, you're not reading this big old book, and so therefore you're not. And it's like, it's just very upsetting to me, because I'm like, you're not being realistic to the way the world works nowadays, and you're also being realistic to the literary world. Like, you're like, I want to be the next Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison wasn't writing books that big. Most of her books are around 60K. Why aren't yours? Why are yours twice that size? Why are yours 4 times that size? And then you want to be like, why is nobody reading my book? You gonna have to be patient. Philip B. Williams' book now is on my TBR. I actually am in the line in my library to read it. People are saying that it's fast paced, so hopefully it is actually fast paced. I'm actually going to try to read it, but at the same time, I'm just so like, I'm like, you can't be serious. You can't be like, I wrote Apocalypse Still is 40,000 words. It is almost a novella, basically. 40,000 words. It's not very long. Even then, people have had my book on their TBR for a year. It's been out for over a year. I will say this. I've had people be like, thank you for the brevity of this book, because I needed something to get me out of the slump. It's something to get you out of the slump. It's something to help you think. Oh my God. It's something to help you think. And we could get, I'm just going to ramble. I'm just gonna ramble because I have so much that I want to say. Like, I feel like Apocalypse Still is a very thought-provoking book. Like, a lot of it is me doing thought experiments. At the same time, I was very disappointed. And I can be an author, I could talk about being disappointed. Like Philip B. Williams talks about being disappointed that no one wants to read his 200,000 word book. I was very disappointed when people were not engaging with that book the way that I wanted them to engage with it. I'm like, yeah, on the surface level, there is one type of story, but once you dig deeper, there are a lot of layers to each and every story that's in it. There are layers in that story, and I find that so many readers are barely even peeling back the layers. And so they'll ask me questions and be like, well, what did this mean? And what did that mean? And usually 9 times out of 10, I can go to the story, point out a line, and be like, you see this? Yeah, it answers your question. Because that's how I wrote those stories. I wrote them as, yeah, I know people are going to have a lot of questions in this, but I'm going to answer the questions in the text. Granted, the answer is like near the front, so you got to reread the story in order to get it. But again, it's only 40,000 words. It's not very long. Like, it's not going to hurt you to reread the story, and the answers are there. And so I was very frustrated. Like, I had someone say, the town of Los Valles is just about a vacation. And I was like, just about a vacation? I'm grateful that the people that I worked with who helped me like workshop and develop this book, I'm very grateful that they were like thinking critically when it came to these stories, because that was something that set the town of Los Valles apart from like a lot of the romance books they were reading, because they were like, it's not just this summer fling, it's also the fact that we're talking about the hills and Los Valles, the hills and the valleys, the top and the bottom. It's a commentary on luxury and who pays the price of luxury. Because I think a lot of times when we have conversations around luxury, it tends to be like, oh, well, I worked really hard to be able to afford this luxury, and you shouldn't be able to tell me that I shouldn't afford it, and things like that. Or when we talk about Black luxury, it's always like, well, how come when Black people get in there, we want to critique it and we want to say it's bad and stuff just because Black people finally made it into. Are you willing to base your comfort on someone else's sacrifice? And that's really the heart of the town of Los Valles. Who pays the price of luxury? Yeah, you may pay for it with cash, but somebody's paying for it with their life. And that is the town of Los Valles. It is this town that is being polluted, where the people are experiencing wage theft, where they're being taken from not just like their work and their energy, but also their lives, right? Their livelihoods is being taken from them in order to push forth this image of luxury. A lot of people didn't really get that far when it came to the town of Los Valles, and that was very, I don't know, it's very disappointing for me as an author. But speaking of luxury, this was also my problem with Can't Get Enough, was the conversation around this Black almost billionaire and this idea of like there are good billionaires when they're not. But this idea that, you know, oh, when Black people are in this space, we're going to treat it better and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, when a lot of Black billionaires get that way by exploiting people, right? And we have to ask that question, is it better for Black people to be in the position of exploitation instead of being the exploited? Because for centuries we have been the exploited. And I think a lot of people think the power comes in being the one who gets to exploit. But again, do you want your comfort to be based on the suffering of others? That's really the big question you got to ask yourself. I just really had to get that off my chest with finishing Can't Get Enough. I'm not saying it's a bad book. I think there were a lot of really good points that Candy Ryan was making. But I think for me, a lot of times when I read things that are about Black luxury and Black opulence, is often couched in this idea that that will save us. And it's just very hard for me to believe the narratives of, oh, this Black person worked very hard for their riches, when I'm surrounded by Black people working 16 hours a day, whose bodies are getting broken down, who are being disabled from the work that they're doing, and they're not making bank, right? And you keep telling me, oh, well, they're just not being smart, and they're just not doing. The system is working the way it's designed to work, and these Black capitalists are being uplifted in order to get you to work. It's not that, oh, they're a sign that the system works. No, they're a sign to get you to invest in the system. And I think the reason we see them cropping up is not because, oh, now it's Black people's time. I think a lot of it is that as Black people, we know like this system was not made for us. It does not benefit us. But if we continuously uplift certain Black people, then we start to think, oh, well, maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe I'm not thinking strategically enough. Maybe if I just do this or if I just do that, and you're constantly trying to work with this system that was not made for you, instead of trying to tear it down and build something that's more equitable for everybody. But again, that's always hard for me. I felt the same way when I read Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop, and having them joke like, oh, we should have got a private jet. And we know the damage that does to the environment, but it's like, well, you know, Black people deserve. Oh my God. I was like, we're missing the point. We're missing the point. But yeah, that's all I have. I really just wanted to share that because it was, I don't know, it was kind of disgusting to me to just see that kind of like wealth flaunted and just be like, well, I worked very hard for it, so I deserve this. And it's like, I know so many Black people who are working probably twice as hard as you and don't have a fraction of the wealth that you do. Are they not deserving? Right? Anyway, that's all I have. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.